everyone. Or afternoon. It's afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. This is our lunchtime series. So today is a lunchtime Vinyasa class. So for now, we're going to start in any seated position that works best for you. So I've got a really loose cross-legged position. You can sit up on a cushion or a folded blanket if that's going to be helpful. We're just going to kind of disconnect. Now, it might be like this might be feeling a lot like Monday if you had yesterday off and you're back at work today. And if you're still kind of riding the COVID wave and you haven't left your house in a month or two or even three, we're gonna just let ourselves disconnect from some of that, like whatever that is, whether it's the office or a project that we're gonna work on or just other stuff. We're just gonna come back home to the body and to the breath. Take a little half an hour vacation into our own kind of inner awareness, inner being. Now I have gathered a few yoga props around me. I've got some blocks, I've got a bottle of water, and then I've got some soft things for later. If for whatever reason you don't have any yoga props, you could go grab those right now and then rejoin us here. And if you don't need yoga props, don't get them. All right, once you've got everything you need, you're gonna snuggle yourself into your sit bones, let your spine rise up, and don't hold yourself too stiffly. Try to let yourself just sort of be, like it's called effortless effort. How's that? There's effort going on because our body muscles are working to hold us in place, but it's not a lot of effortfulness. We're just allowing the bones to mostly do the work and some of the deeper muscles to relax. And this is a great time to notice too, like, is the right shoulder the same as the left shoulder? Is your right hip the same as your left hip? Are there some slight imbalances in your body today? And there's nothing wrong with an imbalance, first of all. Don't judge it or try to fix it. Just notice. Notice what is present now. You might notice like the tension that's created from having spent the morning leaning over your computer. And so as you let your collarbones widen and your shoulder blades come down, you feel that sort of release of that tension across the chest, for example. As you soften out the little space right between your eyebrows and feel that sort of release of tension across the face. Let the breath drop in as deep as it'll go so that with that inhale we hit all the way down to the bottom of the pelvis. And the exhale just lightly floats out of the body. I could spend really a very long time, if not hours, watching the breath. It's really interesting to me, but let's do two more collectively as a group. We're going to drop the chin down. You're going to roll your head up and over one shoulder. I went to the left first. And then roll it back and then roll it up and over the other shoulder. So we're just going to go back and forth over the shoulders. And sometimes what is interesting to me is the one I'm closest to may not be the one that really feels interesting. The one I'm rolling away from might be the one that feels really spicy. So just notice where the spicy spots are. We're going to do one more kind of going back and forth. Just pay attention to where the spots are that are a little bit tugging at you, if there are any. And then when you come back to your first side, you're going to pause where it feels like a good stretch would happen. So for me right here, I'm feeling this really interesting tension right here on my neck. So I'm going to let that pause happen. I'm going to drop my arm out to the side to give it a tiny bit more. I'm not really pulling per se, but I'm letting gravity do some extra work. Now, what I've noticed with the neck too is a couple breaths in and things start to soften. It doesn't take long. These muscles are not very big. So I'm just going to take two more breaths, but I'm going to roll into a slightly different spot. Now I'm going to put my arm back and I'm going to let my chin come back to the center, and I'm just going to pause right there for a second. Let everything relax. And then I'm going to take the journey over the other way. And again, I'm just looking for a spot I found some tension in. And what's interesting to me on this side is that the tension is actually down here on my arm bone. Is it on my arm bone? No, it's a muscle that's coming through and connecting to my arm bone. So I'm going to try to find a rotation in my arm and a position in my head that lets that muscle release. It's coming from up under my shoulder blade, and I can feel it tugging. And so I might even depress my shoulder blade a little bit just to get it really good. A little extra love there on that shoulder I like to sleep on. All right, so take 2 more breaths. I'm going to let it come away from that spot for a second to a different spot. When you get to the end of that second breath, just put your hand back in your lap, take your chin back down to the bottom, and then we're going to float the head up. And you can do some like little hunch the shoulders up and let them drop, or you can do some little circles with the shoulders. Just move your shoulders in a way that feels interesting to you today. I might do some each of those. All right, yogis. So we're going to come up to all fours, and we'll do some work with the spine and with our wrists. Okay. So when you're ready, now if you need some extra padding under your knees, go ahead and add that first, because we're going to do a couple of little movements here. We'll be on the hands and knees for a bit, so go ahead and secure that as you need. And then once you get there, go ahead and let yourself move your spine into these kinds of cat-like shapes. So I've seen cats like stretch out so that their chest goes all the way to the ground. Nobody talks about that pose. It's all about the dogs. But it's a good pose if you want to try it. But you can definitely let yourself kind of hang the belly and release into that upper back a little bit. And then round that lower back a little bit and get those muscles too. Now I'm going to turn my hands to the side so I get a different position with the wrist. And this is especially good for me with my thumb mound. So I'm going to stretch my thumb forward a little bit. And sometimes it feels a little spicy, especially if I've spent too much time on my phone. But it feels nice when it's over. So do one more breath like that. And this one can be a little uber spicy, so I'm going to do one hand at a time. So I've spun one hand back to the original position, and then I'm turning the other hand around as far as I can get it to go, and then just rounding my back into that stretch. And as soon as I feel the stretch, I can stop right there. Let my back and tailbone enjoy it. Let go with that wrist. I like to give it a shake. And then do the other side. So I get the other wrist. And again, I'm going to just pull myself into a rounded back shape just until I feel that stretch in my wrist. And then I'm going to release and let that guy go. So some of the muscles in our forearms are, in some ways, they get really tight when we spend too much time with our thumb either over a mouse or over the edge of the phone or the tablet. So a lot of times this pain that we feel in the thumb is not actually arthritis, but is in fact tight muscles in our forearm. So giving the forearms a kind of opportunity to stretch like that might help take some of the pressure off. You'll have to experiment and see how it goes. Now we're going to bring ourselves to what feels like mostly neutral, and I'm on a carpeted surface, which makes my wrist bend a little extra. So I'm just going to put my hands slightly more forward so that I have a little less bend in my wrist, and I'll take a little bit of the pressure away. So then taking the right leg out and the left arm out, and reaching those out between the 2 points. Give it a good stretch. One more, and then we're going to curl up, bring that knee in, round the back. Stretch the leg back, give it a hook over, maybe a little scorpion tail. If you want to, you can hold on to it with that left hand. Lift the thigh a little higher. And then we're going to bring this leg all the way forward for a lunge. And you might decide this is a good place for a block. You might do it without your block. So we're going to shift the hips forward and shift the hips backward. And I'm going until I just feel the stretch, okay? So shifting my hips forward, right about there is where I feel the stretch on this left hip. And then right about there is where I feel the stretch on the right hamstrings, okay? So just going back and forth one more time. back to these places in a little bit, but for now, we're gonna step this thing back to all fours, shake that right leg out, bring it down, reconstruct everything, take your left leg out and your right arm out, and stretch between those 2 points. Try to draw in through your waist a little bit, as best you can, reach. Okay, so then we're gonna curl that knee in round, bring it out like a scorpion tail hold, and if you want to grab that foot, you can. Lift the leg. Can it go any higher? Oh. Last breath. Release your foot if you're holding it. We're coming all the way through for the lunge. And then we're going to float back and forth. So adjust your hips as needed, so you can get a feeling on that front of the hip, and then on the back of the hamstrings. So my right side is spicier earlier, so I feel that there. And then I can get all the way to my thigh before I feel anything in my left hamstring. So just everything is different. On a daily basis, you might notice little differences. And we're going to do it one more time. Float through till you feel that. And then come back. All right, so then we're going to take this back to all fours. Give that leg a shake. Oh, now one more time, we're going to do a little stretch. And again, this one can be done like a child's pose with the arms extended, okay? Or you can bring the elbows a little tighter in and shift the weight forward and then stretch yourself back so that your hips are almost over the knees or maybe slightly in front of the knees, and then see if you can get this stretch through the upper back. And not everybody will melt into the floor here. I'm going to take one more breath. And then pull yourself through. Now we're going to take a few rounds of Cobra. If Cobra's not your jam, don't lift very high, or just activate the legs, okay? You don't have to do the back bend to get the benefit of activating the legs and the glutes. So if the back bend's okay, lift. And again, don't be pushy with your arms. Let your spine tell you where it's okay to go. Lift. Beautiful. Lift. Oh, we're going to do this 2 more times with the breath. Inhale, lift. And then one more time, inhale, lift. Beautiful. And then we come on back. And this time we're going to downward facing dog. So bring yourself to your dog. And when you get here, pause. And notice, right? Connect to your shoulders a few times. Feel your hips lifted. Oh, I can tell I haven't stretched my calves since yesterday. So you can work into the calf muscles. Oh. And when you feel pretty complete with your dog, you're going to take either a walk or a hop up to the top of your mat. I like to make it kind of a slow journey. So I'm not in any kind of hurry here. If you want to be in a hurry, you can. And then once you're up at the top of your mat, with the feet, about hips distance apart or so, just hang upside down for a moment. And this might be trickier, so bend your knees as much as you need to. All right. So we're going to take one more breath. And then we'll come up halfway. Feel that kind of flattening out of your upper back, and feel yourself pull your collarbones open. Now you can put your hands on your thighs. You can put your hands on your shins. Your knees can be bent or straight. You can put your hands on the floor if you got long enough arms for that. And then we're going to come all the way back over and roll up slow. So feel yourself right here. Really begin to kind of bring the pelvis back. And then draw your navel in to help protect your low back. And then we're going to roll up. And as I feel my upper back come into place, then I'm going to pick my head up. Oh, that feels good. And then find yourself, think all the little places that still haven't been touched. Oh. And then find a mountain pose. So Feel the feet, spread the toes out. Feel that spot where the big toe and the little toe touch the floor, and then the little toes in between the big toe and little toe. Can you elevate those a little bit and spread them out before putting them back down? The answer might be no. It's hard to move those guys independently. And then let yourself feel this kind of sense that you're just gently lifting the top rim of your pelvis to hold yourself nice and steady. Don't lock your knees out. And again, for me, rolling the arms out like this, which is what a lot of people are taught to do, overemphasizes or overjacks my traps. I've already got tight traps. So for me, the better option is to lift the breastbone and relax the shoulders. Not poofing my rib cage out, but just growing a little taller. Oh, that's a better option. Now you might need this kind of turnout of the arms in order to engage the muscles if you've got a weak upper back. You can do that for sure. Take a nice big breath, one more breath here in this mountain. Sometimes we treat mountain like it's a pose we're supposed to get out of quick, but I don't know that it is. Give yourself a big stretch, maybe a little baby back bend there. Folding forward. We're going to come up halfway. Give it a nice lift. Exhale, you're going to fold. Now we're going to step back with the left foot so that we're in a lunge with the right foot. Pause here. Give it a little bit of a twist. So you can add height if it's tricky that way. Reach back through that heel, lift through that left thigh, and then rotate, but try not to drop your left hip to make the rotation happen. Can you keep your hips nice and steady? You can even put your hand right there, kind of press back a little bit through your thumb to keep yourself steady in the hip. And then come out of there, we're going to step back into a plank. So this can be a full plank, nice and lifted, really strong. Push back through your heels, or you can bring your knees to the ground, but the same action. Lift through the navel, curl the tailbone towards the knees. I like the feet up when I do the modified plank. And then we're going to hold it steady for 2 more breaths. You thought we were lowering down right away, didn't you? Some of you may have already done it. Lower down, come into your cobra or your upward dog. And then we're coming back into our downward dog through the plank and into dog. All right, so we're going to take that left leg up. Give it a good long stretch. Step that foot forward. Now pause for a moment, and we're going to see if we can straighten that left leg out. Press into the right heel. Bring it back to the lunge. Straighten the left leg out. Press back through your heel. Bring it back to the lunge. Last one. Straighten the left leg out. Press back through the heel. And then as we move forward, we're going to step forward. And bring the feet up towards each other. Come up halfway. Oh, exhale, fold. Come all the way to standing. Take your time. And then give yourself a big stretch. And a mountain pose. And just notice that there's a difference in the way it feels on the right side versus left. And take in a breath. We'll take it up and maybe into that little baby back bend. Oh, fold forward. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. We're going to step back with the right foot into the lunge. And again, we're going to add this twist. So lift through the right thigh to keep the pelvis nice and steady. And rotate that upper back. You can include the arm. Lift. So if I drop my arm, I can bring myself all the way around to there, or drop my hip. But now my hips are doing the work, not my spine. So to make my spine do the twist, I think is more powerful. Take one more breath. Good. So we're going to take the hands down, and again, we're going to step back into plank. And again, you can do this full plank. We're going to hold it. You can do the modified plank. Dial in that navel, and we're holding here. Choose the plank that's going to not wreck you, is basically the idea. You want to start to build strength, but we're going to build it nice and slow. Take a big breath. Exhale, lower down. Come into your cobra or your upward dog. Ooh, bring it back to your downward dog. And again, once we're here, we're going to take that right leg all the way up. Give it a good stretch. We're going to step it forward. You might need to wiggle it into place so that you've got a lunge, and then pause for a moment. And then we're going to try to straighten out this right leg and press down through that left heel. Come back to the lunge. Straighten out the right leg, press through the left heel. Whew. Come back to the lunge. One more time, we're going to straighten out the right leg. Push down through that left heel. And then bend your knee. And we're going to step this left foot right up to meet the right one. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. And then we're going to come all the way up to standing. Be mindful of things around you. And back to your mountain pose. And feeling again that mountain pose. What does it mean to stand like a mountain? So we're going to put all the weight in the right leg. This left leg is going to come into a tree pose. Now you can put your foot down. You can grab the foot and bring it up on top, up above the knee. Just be careful of the knee itself. And then honoring the relationship you have to the furnishings around you. And the living beings. Give yourself a moment in your tree. Now maybe your branches are lower. That might be nicer for my friends. Take in a big breath. So we're going to pick up this left leg and step it back. And we're going to eventually wind up kind of in a warrior two shape, but it might take a couple little snaggles. So here's the thing with warrior two in alignment. Some people have been taught to align their hips sideways. The problem with that is that depending on the shape of this joint right here, it'll bring the knee forward and in an awkward position, okay? Don't align yourself from the hip. This is the one time we're actually going to align the foot, and then we're going to let everything follow the hip. So we're going to turn the thigh so that the knee looks like it's pointing kind of towards the two pinky toes. And then you're going to just put your knee where you want it, over your ankle, a little bit less. Then feel where your hips landed and bring this left foot into alignment with your hips. And that way you're lining up with your anatomical structure, the joints, and the knees held in a position that feels strong and safe and balanced, okay? So then with that work done, we're going to come back to reverse warrior and over into side angle. Try to hold the legs nice and steady. Reverse warrior. Side angle, give that a good stretch. Oh, because it feels good. Reverse warrior. Side angle, give it a stretch. Now we're going to reach down here and take this leg back up off the floor. Maybe you're going to use a block. Maybe your hands on the floor. Lift through this leg as best you can. Give it a good stretch. Oh. Then we're going to bring this knee in, hug it into the chest, curl in. Stretch out if you can. If you fall, catch. Curl it in. Stretch out if you can. We just have one more to go. Curl it in and then bring that foot down. Come up halfway. Exhale, fold. And then we're going to come all the way to standing. Being sensitive to the things you got in your room. And then find your mountain pose. And feel. So we keep coming back to this touchstone mountain pose today. It's our touchstone. Okay, so we're going to shift the weight into the left leg. We're going to bring our right leg into our tree shape. Finding a nice home there. Maybe extending out your branches. Maybe you're a weeping willow. Lift nice and tall through the core. We're going to pick up this leg, step it back. Warrior two, and again, you're going to find this alignment with your thigh first. Let everything else follow. Then come to reverse warrior and over. Oh. And reverse warrior. And reverse warrior. Oh, and over. Give that a stretch. We're going to do it one more time. Reverse. And then we're going to go all the way into that half moon balance. And maybe this side's a little wobblier, so you might hold on, right? Use a wall or piece of furniture. You can even put your hands all the way down on the floor. So we're going to try this. We're going to bring the knee in, curl up around it, extend out. Okay, knee in, curl up around it, extend out. Beautiful, one more time, knee curl up, put that foot down, coming back to center, come up halfway. Oh, lengthen that out. Exhale, fold. And then we're gonna roll all the way up to standing. Oh, give it a stretch. Oh. One more time, we're gonna come back to our touchstone mountain pose. Oh. And just see if you can feel a difference. Now for me, my whole body feels like it's buzzing or humming with energy, feels lighter, which is kind of, I don't know, I don't know how to explain it. It feels effervescent. How's that? It's nice. And I get that from practice, and sometimes I think to myself, oh, I don't feel like getting on my mat today. But on those days, I'm trying to remind myself about this. Now we're gonna do a squat. So I've turned towards you so that makes it a little easier to see. And we're gonna take the knees as low as you can go, or the hips as low as you can go. So if your squat's up here, cool. If your squat can get to kind of parallel, fine. If you need your knees out or legs a little wider, take them out wider. If your heels come off the ground, you can put something under your heels to give yourself something to perch on. And just see how low you can go. This is one of those poses that's really good for the hips, the knees, the ankles. But we have to work our way towards it if it's not in our regular everyday movement patterns. So we start where we are and we work in that direction. Now some people will be able to just sit right down on the floor. So we're gonna take one more big breath here. And then if you can sit right down on the floor, sit right down. If you can't do that, come back up to a forward bend, put your leg on the ground, and then come around. So we're all sitting down. Alrighty, so we're gonna take this butterfly shape with the legs. Now you can pull your feet in really tight, or you can push your feet out really wide. So it's whatever space you can get is what you're gonna use. And then we're gonna sit up nice and tall. And then we're gonna fold forward. Now, lift your breastbone, engage a little bit through your core, so you're like hugging the sides of your waist in a little bit. And then lean forward if you can with the pelvis. If your pelvis doesn't lean forward, you're not leaning forward, you're going up, right? So if your pelvis is back here, you're gonna lengthen up here. So wherever it lets you bring your pelvis, that's where you lengthen. If your pelvis can tilt forward, cool. If your pelvis is backward, cool. Just go where you go. We're gonna hold this lengthened position for 2 more breaths. So your pose might resemble like a staff pose and a bound angle pose had a baby, right? Well, that's fun. So inhale your way up. So the staff pose is where you put your legs out front and you sit up nice and tall, and some people can press their palms down into the floor. I have to do fingertips. But we're gonna engage the legs, point the toes up. So the inner thighs are rolling in, bend your knees slightly, quads are active, press out through the heels, spread out your toes, draw the shoulder blades down your back. Now it's a straight up staff pose. And more of us might be comfortable with this pose as opposed to the last one. I'm gonna take 2 more breaths. And then you might need to widen out your legs a little bit. You might widen out your legs a lot. We're gonna see if we can bring the pelvis forward, and if it's possible, you can grab hold of the toes or the sides of your feet. So we're gonna keep the toes pointing up, engage through the legs, keep the knees a little bent, and see if you can bring that breastbone and top of the pelvis forward until it stops. When you run into your thighs, you're done. When your joints say, enough, you're done, wherever that is. If your forehead is touching your shin bones, you gotta stop there. We all have a done point. It might just be a little bit different. 2 more breaths. Okay, we're gonna let go of the feet. We're gonna come all the way up. And then we're gonna let everything get rinsed out. So we're gonna lean back, do a little shake out. We're gonna come back to the first position that we were in. So whatever your seated position was at the beginning, we're gonna come back to that. For me, it was left leg forward, or in front or on top, however you want to think about it, and it's cross-legged position. So sit up nice and tall. Whatever leg is in front, we're going to spin in that direction. Now, you can bring the knee up if you want to. I'm going to leave mine down, and I'm going to reach for it by turning, and then wherever my arm naturally lands, I'm going to push down into my hand with that leg, and I'm going to press up with my spine. Curl it, like tug in through my abs, and lift and try to lengthen myself up. Now, I'm going to do this little figure eight with my shoulder. That's why this is helpful. So I'm going to hold, and my leg is giving me a little extra resistance, and I'm going to try to bring this shoulder blade forward and up, and this shoulder blade down and in, so that it's almost like I'm drawing a figure eight between my shoulder blades. That's how it feels in the muscle to me. And then your head can go either direction. I often like to look over the front when I do this really active thing, but sometimes I change my mind. We're going to take 2 more breaths here. And we're going to release the shoulders, give everything a rinse. This is one of my favorite little upper back stretches or releases, because there's a lot of muscle, touching a lot of muscle in our upper back, and it can get really sticky and congested. Now here's the tricky part. You're going to switch which leg is in front. Now if you're kneeling on your shins, then you're fine. You just get to twist the other way, and then you'll be fine. You're going to do the same thing. But if you did this, if you did a cross-legged position, move it. So now I'm going to twist. I'm going to reach my arm out wherever it happens to land. That's where I'm going to work with. This leg is pushing down, so I've got this little extra bit of structure here, so I can bring this shoulder blade up and forward. This shoulder blade's going down and in. Okay. I'm gonna bring it right there. And so I've got this kind of, again, this little figure eight with my shoulders. Don't be too aggressive with your back. Let it twist however much it's twisting. Try to get the shoulder blades to do this extra work, not your lumbar spine. It has limitations. So does your thoracic spine, just not as many. In the rotational direction anyway, it's got other limitations. We're going to take 2 more breaths, yogis. Okay, so I'm going to shift this shoulder blade one more time, just a little extra, and then I'm going to release that, let go. And again, give myself a little rinse out. Now, if you have to get off on your way to work, then this is your chance to go grab a snack and go back to work, having done this really nice release, hopefully, for your upper back and shoulders, so that your work, whatever work you might be doing, is a little more relaxed. If you've got some extra time, you could stretch out on your mat and do Shavasana. Put on some nice music. Chillax. It might be turned into a nap. It's hard to know. But in any case, together we're going to say goodbye to each other with a really big breath. And here's the thing, you guys. We're going to let go with an audible sigh. The audible sigh is the same sound that appears over and over and over again in sacred mantra, right? Ah, ah. This sound appears over and over and over again. And it's a connection to the kind of universal river of consciousness. That's what that sound is. And so just when we take that big and let go with a big we're joining this river of consciousness with no religious implications whatsoever. Let's do it one more time. Big breath. Namaste, yogis. Thanks for being in my river of consciousness.